Well, welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast. Author and speaker Brian Tracy said that communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. And this issue of communication has been near and dear to me lately, largely due to a lot of frustration at what a lack of clarity in communication can lead to. And this is applicable in so many aspects of our business and personal lives. When there is a lack of clarity, frustration is imminent. Where there is a lack of clarity, frustration is imminent. Clarity in communication significantly reduces frustration. A lot of times something makes sense to us when we say it or when we write it, but it doesn't get the point across. We didn't do the correct things to communicate effectively, written or verbal. And so having that focus of creating clarity through your communication will help eliminate a lot of headaches and help you better grow your business. So let's just take a little bit of a quick overview at some things we can do to improve our communication. Again, there are entire books on this topic, and it's just something that's been on my heart and mind, just seeing such a challenge with this in today's economy and society and business operations. So again, clarity in communication significantly reduces frustration. So when you're communicating with someone, you've got to get out of your head, number one, and keep your target audience, that person you're talking to, that group of people you're communicating to, in mind. You need to talk to them. You got to talk on levels they will understand. A lot of us who are professionals, we have a lot of jargon. We have a lot of things we know in our heads because it's our profession, but other people don't. We need to stop assuming they know everything that we know. We don't do it intentionally. So we have to be intentional about keeping that audience in mind when we're communicating, whether written or in verbal form. And then we need to be clear with those, 5 W's and the H, right? The who, what, where, why, when, and how. Our communication needs to be clear in who is communicating something to who or about who. The who needs to be very specific. The why. Why does this need to be done? People usually don't buy into anything unless they understand the why. So if we want to be effective, if not more than effective with our communication, we need the why to be clear to people. This is important. Why? We need to do this so that, as we've talked about in previous episodes. What? Once we understand the why, what needs to happen needs to be very clear. If we kind of speak in broad terms or gloss over the details, the what is not clear to the person you're communicating to, there's going to be frustration on your part when they don't do it, and on their part when they don't know what your expectations are. Expectations have to be clear, right? Where does this need to happen? Where does this need to be communicated? All the where details need to be clear. And how, if there's any instructions, those need to be clear. They need to be concise. They need to be brief. They need to be clear. And most importantly, in so many emails, we need to make sure the when is clear, right? We send an email, this is due, or we need this returned at your earliest convenience. Well, that doesn't give a date. And we are all busy people, and business and industry and aviation today and other industries. People are going a million miles a minute. We've overcommitted ourselves. We're trying to catch up with what's going on. Life is just busy. And if we don't give someone a clear date, it's a very likely chance that they're going to miss it. So if we really need something by a certain date, we need to be clear about that. And we probably need to cheat a couple days in advance because there's more than likely going to need to be a follow-up. But if your when is not clear, you are not setting the proper expectation. Or if someone's asking something of you, if you don't get their expectation of when, they're likely to become frustrated with you. So if you're on the service side of the business, which most of us are, at least in some capacity, your customers are going to have expectations. And so you need to clarify when the when is. And unfortunately, it happens that sometimes all of us, sometimes we think we ask for something at a certain date, and we actually asked for it to be later, or we didn't ask at all. And so we've said, well, I already thought this was going to be here. So if we've established both verbally and then hopefully in an email when you're expecting this, then we take away that frustration and confusion and a lack of clarity. So when we get really clear on the who, the why, the what, the where, the when, and the how in our communication, either written or verbal, we're going to eliminate frustration. We're going to improve our service. We are going to have better relationships. But let me reemphasize this again. The expectations must be clear. If you don't have them from whoever's asking something of you, you need to ask those questions. When do you need this? Where do you need this? What are you expecting, right? Asking good questions is a keystone skill in business, and it's not been used enough. But fortunately, we're seeing more and more discussion on that. Here's a few other helpful tips. Read entire emails. Man, I know I've been guilty of this, and I know I have a lot of people in my life that have been guilty of reading the first couple lines, formulating an opinion, and then firing off a response that, doesn't look intelligent or comes off angry or whatever it might be. Read entire emails. Slow down when you construct your emails. Make sure there is a proper salutation, body, action step close, and make sure all those who, what, where, why, and hows are done. But don't go on and write an entire book. I know that's a problem I have a tendency to do. But, read entire emails, slow down when you write emails. And folks, if you have any relationship or potential for a relationship with a person, please respond to people within a reasonable amount of time. There are so many people who contact your company about getting a proposal, buying your product, somebody applying for a job within your organization, somebody who's interviewed, and when they don't have the right response, they just don't respond, or if they think they're not sure they want to move forward, or they just don't respond, or not responding speaks volume to your character, even if it's not who you really are. So respond, even if it's, I don't have an answer to that yet. We are working on it, and we'll get back to you within this amount of time. Respond to people within a reasonable amount of time. Now, that said, I'm not telling folks to answer every spam sales message in email and LinkedIn. Man, I know I get so many, I couldn't possibly read and return all of those LinkedIn contacts and be able to conduct my business. But when somebody's actually engaging with you, that you have a relationship ongoing or a potential relationship from a business or personal perspective, at least respond, show some courtesy. And again, slow down in your communication. Set aside time to read your emails and to write them rather than doing it on the fly. I can't tell you how many mistakes I've made on email by reading only the first part, making a quick response, not reading the whole thing, not slowing down, and not being focused on that communication. Focusing on communication will help go to all these other things we're talking about. And finally, I just encourage you, there are a lot of great articles on composing great business emails or focused emails. Some of them have some great tips, so spend some time checking those out. Get to know ways to improve what you're doing. We always can get better at what we're doing. George Bernard Shaw said this. He said, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So often we think something's been communicated, but when it hasn't been done clearly, without clear expectations, we have the illusion that communication has taken place. If we're bringing somebody on as a customer, do we have a statement of work outlining exactly what we're expecting to be done? I've been in situations where that's not the case, and both parties have been frustrated. Gain clarity, clearly communicate, and take your business to a higher altitude by being someone who clearly communicates, providing clear expectations, and grows through effective communication. Well, here's your aviation fun fact for the day. And we're going to go back to September 27th of 1922. And according to Wikipedia, Dr. Albert Taylor and Leo Young, scientists at the U.S. Naval Aircraft Radio Laboratory, made the first successful directions of objects by radio observation. They used a wireless wave to detect objects not visible due to weather or darkness. This insight led to the advent of radar. In the autumn of 1922, Taylor and Young at the U.S. Laboratory were conducting these communication experiments when they noticed that a wooden ship in the Potomac River was interfering with their signals. So they prepared a memorandum suggesting that this might be used for ship direction and harbor defense, but their suggestion was not taken up. So in 1930, and Lawrence Highland, working with Taylor and Young, now at the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory in Washington, D.C. at the time, used a similar arrangement of radio equipment to detect a passing aircraft. So this led to a proposal and a patent for using this technique for detecting ships and aircraft. And thanks to the work and innovation of these two gentlemen, we now have radar that has provided aircraft separation and saved many countless lives in years to come. Well, that's your aviation fun fact for today. Until next time, keep your wheels up and your attitude high.
Thanks for listening to the Aviation Business Podcast. If you found this episode of value, please share with someone who could benefit from its content. You can stay up to date by subscribing in iTunes or your podcast player of choice. This episode is brought to you by Aris Insurance Solutions, your flight plan for navigating the turbulence in aviation insurance. To find out more, go to arisinsurance.com. That's AERIS insurance.com.